30 years ago, romantic stories began with chance encounters in cafes, at parties, or in libraries. Today, millions of people find love with a single swipe of a finger across a smartphone screen. We live in an era where invisible mathematical formulas decide whom we meet, with whom we speak, and perhaps with whom we spend the rest of our lives. Algorithms have become the digital cupids of the 21st century. Tinder, Bumble, Hinge. These apps have transformed partner search into an endless feed of photos, where life-changing decisions are made in fractions of a second. Swipe right. Yes. Swipe left. No. A simple action, behind which lies a complex system of calculations. But what happens when the most irrational human feeling is attempted to be confined within the framework of mathematical models? Can the chemistry between people be algorithmized? Are formulas capable of accounting for that thrill that arises from a casual touch or glance? Or, in the pursuit of efficiency, are we losing something fundamentally important? Behind Tinder's simple interface lies a complex ecosystem of algorithms that turn the search for love into a precise science. How does this digital cupid work? At its core was the ELO rating system, the same mathematical model used to rank chess players. Each user received a hidden attractiveness rating, which was formed based on how often their profile received positive swipes. The more people swiped right, the higher your rating became. The algorithm then showed you profiles with similar ratings, a kind of digital attractiveness league. However, in 2019, Tinder officially abandoned this system, replacing it with a more complex model. The modern algorithm takes into account many factors: geographical proximity, profile activity, frequency of app use, completeness of information, and of course, your behavioral patterns. The first few hours in the app are especially important. The algorithm shows your profile to the maximum number of potential partners to collect data on your attractiveness. This is the so-called initial ranking period. In addition to visual preferences, algorithms track how much time you spend looking at someone's profile, what photos keep your attention, what biographical details you pay attention to. Even the speed of swipes matters. Swiping through profiles too quickly can be considered spam and lower your rating. The algorithm also tracks who you communicate with after a match, how long these conversations last, whether you exchange contacts. All these micro-actions form a mathematical model of your preferences. But the most interesting thing is that the algorithm not only takes into account your explicit preferences, but also identifies hidden patterns. You may claim to be looking for blondes, but if you systematically show interest in brunettes, the algorithm will notice this and adjust the output. Every time you swipe your finger across the screen, artificial intelligence is watching closely, observing your gestures, pauses, reactions. It's like an invisible psychologist analyzing the slightest nuances of behavior. Modern dating algorithms use sophisticated machine learning methods to transform our emotional responses into a data set. When you linger on someone's profile a few seconds longer than usual, the algorithm notices. When you return to a person's photo, the system makes a note. All of this forms your digital footprint, a mathematical projection of your romantic desires that you may not even be aware of. The most surprising thing is that algorithms often understand our preferences better than we do ourselves. Studies show that artificial intelligence can predict who we will find attractive by analyzing only our previous swipes. This happens thanks to neural networks that identify patterns in our actions that are inaccessible to conscious analysis. Machine learning allows for the identification of micro-patterns of preferences: the type of smile, the shape of the eyes, clothing style, the background of a photograph. Details that we ourselves do not consciously recognize as significant. For instance, if you more frequently show interest in people with a certain type of hairstyle or photos taken in nature, the algorithm will begin to prioritize similar profiles in your feed. One of the most powerful tools in the arsenal of dating apps is collaborative filtering. This method is based on a simple principle. If you like the same people as user X, then you will likely also like other people that user X likes. This is how the algorithm creates taste clusters, groups of people with similar preferences. But the most interesting part begins when algorithms try to predict compatibility. They analyze not only physical attractiveness, but also the potential chemistry between people. To do this, dozens of factors are taken into account, from communication style to activity within the app. Some services even analyze linguistic patterns in correspondence to determine how well two people will understand each other. Imagine a restaurant where, instead of a menu, you are offered an endless catalog of dishes. Thousands of pages with photographs of exquisite delicacies from all over the world. What will you choose? And most importantly, will you be satisfied with your choice? This thought experiment perfectly illustrates what psychologists call the paradox of abundance. A phenomenon that, in the era of dating apps, has taken on a truly massive scale. When potential partners are not dozens but thousands, choice becomes not a privilege, but a burden. Research by psychologist Barry Schwartz shows the more options we have, the less satisfied we are with the final decision. We constantly doubt, what if there's a better option somewhere? This very feeling underlies the FOMO phenomenon, the fear of missing out. In the context of romantic relationships, this turns into constant anxiety. What if the next swipe opens the door to the ideal partner? What if I stop too early? Dating apps deliberately exploit this psychological vulnerability. Endless scrolling through profiles creates the illusion of inexhaustible possibilities. Each new match is a dopamine spike, a small victory that makes us come back again and again. But there's also a downside. When people are perceived as cards in a deck, the value of each individual decreases. Studies show dating app users are more likely to end communication at early stages, even if they like the interlocutor. After all, there's always someone else just a swipe away. Algorithmic logic amplifies this effect. By constantly offering us new options, adapting to our preferences, it creates the feeling that the ideal partner is simply a matter of enough attempts. You just need to keep searching, and the mathematics of probabilities will do its job. Swipe, match, message, welcome to a world where the search for love has turned into a game. Modern dating apps have borrowed mechanics from the gaming industry so organically that we barely notice how our feelings are being gamified. Each match is accompanied by bright animation and a sound signal, a small victory causing a dopamine rush. Rating systems, achievements, and rewards transform the romantic quest into a kind of game with difficulty levels and bonuses. Tinder, Bumble, Hinge, they all use elements of game design to hold our attention. Super likes, boost functions, premium subscriptions. These are not just additional options, but game enhancers promising to advance you to a new level in the hierarchy of digital dating. Even the swipe mechanic itself resembles a card game. You're essentially dealing a deck, placing bets on potential partners. This gaming shell inevitably changes our perception of relationships. When the search for a partner becomes a game, people turn into game objects that can be collected, sorted, evaluated. Psychologists note an alarming trend. Dating app users increasingly view other people through the prism of their usefulness for achieving their own goals. This manifests itself in a phenomenon that researchers call instrumentalization of relationships. When a person's value is determined by how much they help us advance in the game of life. The gamification of feelings has deeper consequences as well. Games teach us to think in terms of immediate rewards, quick feedback, and constant progress. But real relationships rarely follow this logic. They require patience, self-improvement, acceptance of imperfections. All that contradicts game mechanics. As a result, a generation is forming that expects the same dynamics from relationships as from their favorite video game. If something goes wrong, it's easier to start a new game than to fix what's broken. The reward system in dating apps is particularly telling. The number of matches becomes a measure of success, a kind of currency of social capital. People begin to optimize their profiles not to find a suitable partner, but to maximize the number of matches. Like players striving to score more points. Have you ever noticed how your social media feed gradually fills up with only the opinions you already share? The exact same effect happens in dating apps. This phenomenon has been dubbed the algorithmic bubble or filter bubble, a digital cocoon that imperceptibly forms around each user. The algorithms of Tinder and other dating apps tirelessly analyze every swipe, every pause, every message. Their goal is to predict as accurately as possible who you will like. At first glance, this sounds wonderful. But herein lies a fundamental problem. The more accurate the algorithms become, the narrower the circle of people you see. If you have shown interest in blondes of a certain physique several times, the system will start showing you more similar profiles. If you regularly swipe left on people of a certain profession or hobby, the algorithm will gradually exclude them from your feed. This creates a vicious circle. Your previous choices determine future opportunities, and new choices only reinforce existing patterns. Research shows that users of dating apps gradually begin to interact with an increasingly narrow and homogeneous circle of potential partners. This is the digital version of the old adage, like attracts like, only on machine learning steroids. However, true love often arises contrary to our expectations and preferences. History knows countless couples who would never have met if they had followed a strict compatibility algorithm. How many great love stories began with the words, "He, she, is not my type at all"? Algorithmic bubbles deprive us of the opportunity to be surprised. They exclude the element of randomness, which often becomes the catalyst for the deepest connections. Moreover, they limit our personal growth. Encounters with people who challenge our prejudices and broaden our horizons become increasingly rare. This is particularly alarming in the context of existing social segregation. Dating apps risk reinforcing societal divisions along educational, class, and cultural lines. Research shows that algorithms often amplify existing biases, creating digital echo chambers of romantic preferences. Do we live in a world of predetermination, where our romantic destinies are written in lines of code? This question is becoming increasingly relevant in an era when algorithms not only suggest partners to us, but actually shape the landscape of our opportunities. The philosophical concept of determinism acquires a new digital dimension. If classical determinism asserted that all events are predetermined by preceding causes, digital determinism suggests that our choice of partner can be predicted and even modeled by mathematical formulas. How truly free are we in our romantic choices? When we swipe right, is it truly our decision or the result of subtle algorithmic manipulation? Studies show a surprising fact. Up to 70% of dating app users regularly choose profiles that the algorithm specifically placed at the top of their feed. We think we are acting of our own free will, but often we are following a predetermined path. This creates the illusion of choice, while actually narrowing possibilities. Just as social networks shape our political views, dating apps shape our romantic preferences. We begin to want what is shown to us, and we are shown what the algorithm thinks we should want. This vicious circle gradually turns us into predictable consumers of romantic content. However, human nature resists complete predictability. In every system, there is room for randomness, unforeseen circumstances, irrational decisions. It is these elements of chaos that often become the source of the deepest and most meaningful connections between people. Imagine a world where every romantic interaction is optimized by algorithms. where every partner perfectly matches your preference profile. Sounds ideal? Or terrifyingly sterile? This is the main philosophical question of digital determinism. Aren't we losing something essential in our pursuit of optimization? The magic of a chance encounter, the thrill of unexpected attraction, the transformative power of love that arose against all predictions. Perhaps true freedom of choice lies not in optimizing decisions, but in preserving space for unpredictability, in recognizing that the most significant events of our lives often happen not because of algorithms, but in spite of them. Can a machine understand the thrill of a first kiss? Is an algorithm capable of recognizing the chemistry between two people when their gazes first meet? These questions are not merely philosophical reflections. They define the future of digital relationships. Dating app developers are investing millions in creating systems capable of decoding human emotions. Modern algorithms can already analyze facial expressions, vocal intonations, and even writing styles to determine a user's emotional state. Emotion recognition technology has advanced to such an extent that some systems claim to be able to determine the level of sincerity and interest of an interlocutor with up to 70% accuracy. Affectiva has developed algorithms capable of identifying micro-expressions, those fleeting emotional reactions that last fractions of a second and often escape human attention. Some dating apps are already experimenting with these technologies, analyzing users' reactions to photos of potential partners. However, there is a chasm between recognizing emotions and understanding their deeper meaning. An algorithm can record an accelerated heartbeat, dilated pupils, and elevated body temperature, physiological markers of attraction. But can it understand the context of these reactions? Can it distinguish the excitement of a first date from the anxiety before an important conversation? Can it interpret silence as a moment of deep connection rather than a sign of boredom? Here we encounter a fundamental limitation of artificial intelligence: the inability to experience emotional experiences. A machine can simulate understanding, but it will never feel emotions itself. It doesn't know what it's like to fall head over heels in love or suffer from a broken heart. Without this experience, all its interpretations remain superficial, lacking the intuitive depth that even an emotionally immature human possesses. Who truly owns our romantic data? This question takes center stage in an era when every swipe, every message, and every pause before a reply transforms into a valuable informational asset. Behind the appealing interface of dating apps lies a massive industry of collecting and analyzing data about the intimate sphere of our lives. When you agree to the terms of use for Tinder or Bumble, you are effectively ceding rights to the most personal information: your romantic and sexual preferences. This data proves more valuable than any other user information. Why? Because it touches upon profound aspects of human psychology that are almost impossible to conceal or fabricate. In 2018, researchers from Stanford University proved that the nature of interaction with dating apps can accurately determine sexual orientation, political views, and even a propensity for certain psychological disorders. This information becomes a commodity that companies can monetize in various ways, from targeted advertising to selling anonymized data to third parties. A particular concern is the issue of manipulation. If an algorithm can accurately predict who you will like, then it can also influence your choices. Small changes in the order of profile display, in the highlighting of certain traits, or in the wording of notifications can significantly impact whom you choose. This opens the door to covert social engineering, forming couples based on criteria that benefit not you, but third parties. The commercialization of romantic relationships has reached an unprecedented level. Dating apps have transformed into a multi-billion-dollar industry where your attention and emotions are the primary currency. Premium subscriptions, boost features, super likes. All these monetization mechanics effectively sell you the hope of love, turning a deeply personal experience into a transaction. What, then, is the responsibility of developers to society? As legislation lags behind technological realities, ethical boundaries remain blurred. Should algorithm creators disclose the operating principles of their systems? Do users have the right to know on what criteria certain profiles are shown or not shown to them? These questions extend far beyond the scope of a user agreement. We stand on the threshold of an era where the most intimate aspects of human life become the object of algorithmic analysis and commercial exploitation. And the main question here is not technical, but ethical. How to preserve humanity in the digital pursuit of love? How to ensure that technology serves our genuine needs rather than turning us into a product? We stand on the threshold of a new era of romantic relationships, an era of hybrid love, where digital technologies and human emotions coexist in a complex yet potentially harmonious union. Just as electric light did not replace the sun, but complemented it. Algorithms should not displace human intuition, but enhance its capabilities. Hybrid love is not a compromise between technology and humanity, but their conscious synthesis. It is the recognition that digital tools can expand our opportunities for meeting suitable people, but the depth of connection still requires purely human qualities: empathy, vulnerability, patience. Research shows that couples who met online, but developed their relationships in the real world, exhibit the same level of satisfaction and stability as those who met through traditional means. The key factor here is not the method of meeting, but what happens after the first encounter. So how can authenticity be preserved in a world of algorithmic recommendations? The first step is mindfulness. Understanding how these systems work allows us to use them without becoming their product. The second is establishing healthy boundaries, defining time and place for digital interactions so that they complement, rather than replace, real-world experiences. The third is preserving space for randomness and spontaneity, even if it means sometimes acting contrary to algorithm recommendations. Interestingly, some innovative dating apps are already moving towards a hybrid model. They use algorithms not to find the perfect match, but to create a context for meaningful encounters. For example, the Lex app focuses on text descriptions and shared interests, rather than visual evaluations. Other platforms intentionally limit the number of profiles you can view per day, encouraging deeper interaction with each potential partner. Perhaps the future of romantic relationships lies not in perfecting matchmaking algorithms, but in creating digital spaces that foster genuine human connection. Technology can help us overcome geographical, social, and psychological barriers that previously prevented kindred spirits from meeting. Ultimately, the most powerful algorithm is our own heart. No technology can replace the moment when two people look into each other's eyes and feel a connection that surpasses any mathematical models. Our task is to learn how to use digital tools in such a way that they lead us to these moments, rather than distance us from them.